Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe, presented by BetOnline. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best hoop analysts in the business. I'm also joined by the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael Worldby Freer, who is a senior writer at StatFactor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 135, a moment in which I'm stopping the game, as World B likes to say, as tonight's show is dedicated to my fellow 48 Minutes co-hosts, Bruce and World B, and of course, our loyal listeners, as today marks the second year anniversary of 48 Minutes. 2 years ago today, we put out our first ever episode, and I'm proud to say we have not missed a week since. So thanks to everyone for listening. And any quick comments here, fellas, as far as today being 2-year anniversary? Bruce?
Well, we're like the AC Green of podcasts, right? I mean, yeah. AC Green played like 1,200,000,000,000 consecutive games back in the day and never missed a game. And so we're AC Green 2.0.
Yeah. World?
Well, I'm the living embodiment of the terrible twos here, so I'm the one that's keeping us down here. But this has been a blast to be able to do this for 2 years now. It's really it's been the highlight of my Mondays, that's for sure. I look forward to it, plan my schedule around it, prep for it. It's been a blast.
Absolutely. Time flies when you're having fun. So here's to carrying on to year 3. And before we get going, one quick reminder before we get into our NBA Cup special tonight. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC, head to BetOnline today, and don't forget to use our promo code BLEAV, that is BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. And as I teased at the top here, tonight's our NBA Cup special. We're going to spotlight all things NBA Cup as the exciting semifinal matchups took place this past weekend in Las Vegas. And let's go ahead and focus in on what we've learned and maybe what we didn't learn from these matchups. And so starting out east, we had a very entertaining matchup between the Atlanta Hawks and Milwaukee Bucks as the Bucks came away with the victory 110-102. But let's start off by discussing the Atlanta Hawks because they're really shaping up to be a very well-rounded team that looks like they might be a tough out come playoff time, Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, they're almost kind of like the opposite of the Bucks. The Bucks are primarily a veteran team with a few young guys that are sort of newcomers, whereas the Hawks are a young up-and-coming team with a couple veterans that are sort of their reserves. And look, Trae Young is still the engine on this team, but his game has really evolved, I think. He's scoring less, and, his shot hasn't been falling for like a good chunk of his career, but his hoop IQ has increased, and he's now doing a much better job as a playmaker. And with all that speed around him, he's getting the ball out to his scorers and getting a whole lot of assists because they are just running away with it. So running away, with he starts them, he gets them going, and he's done a really nice job with it.
Yeah. World B, what's your thoughts on Atlanta?
I think their world got a whole lot better when they started playing defense. I mean, this is starting to look a lot more like the Quinn Snyder teams that we saw in Utah when he had some really great defensive teams. And this Hawks team is starting to play that defense. We know about Dyson. We talked about him here on this show, and he keeps going. He hasn't slowed down yet in his defensive effort, particularly getting steals and whatnot. But I think as a team, their world got a whole lot better when they started. Even the game they lost in the Cup out there in Vegas, they had a really good defensive game. It kind of broke down in the fourth quarter a little bit, but they had that game, and they were playing really well, and it just won't work out. The offense has got to get a little bit better if you want me to take them seriously, even in the East. But their defense, they're getting better, and as long as they can continue to play that defense, I think they absolutely can be a factor in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, no question. And I think when you look at the defense of this Atlanta Hawks team, it all starts with just how young and athletic this team is, as Bruce alluded to with how young they are. I mean, they've got a variety of different options at every single position. I mean, Larry Nance doesn't even play for this team. He is a serviceable veteran guy. They've got Okongwu off the bench who provides a nice spark. They've got Clint Capella, who's a veteran that gets the job done on the boards. And I think as far as their offense being pivotal moving forward against quality teams, this team goes as Jalen Johnson goes. He is a decisive factor for this team. Right now, he would get my vote as the most improved player in the NBA this season, given what he's done so far. But when they're stacked up against quality opponents, I think they need Jalen Johnson to come through. And in this one in Vegas on Saturday night, he struggled to get things going until the fourth quarter, and that came back to cost him.
One other guy worth mentioning about their offense or whatever, DeAndre Hunter coming off the bench has been a real good spark for him. That is a really good spot for him. He's been very productive in that role since he returned to the lineup, and I can't see why he wouldn't stay in that role going forward. So that's a real big plus for them. And as I mentioned, I want to see their offense getting better, whatever. Having him coming off the bench really does help that offense.
I'm glad you mentioned Hunter because I was going to mention him as well. He's coming off the bench. He's getting 19 a game, right? I mean, he and Peyton Pritchard are really like probably the number 1 and 2 sixth men, bench scoring, microwave type players coming into the game off of team's bench. And look, I mean, it's like when Hunter comes into the game, in the 2 wins that they had over Cleveland, he was really kind of the main guy on Atlanta in both of those wins. And Cleveland, I mean, they have half of Cleveland's losses. Cleveland's got 4 losses this year. 2 of them have come to Atlanta, okay? So I had said on this show a couple of weeks ago, I could see this coming and we could all see it coming, because you can see Quinn Snyder's finally got his crew together and he's implementing his program. And, he's got 8 guys averaging double figures. So really, should any injuries take place on their team, they do have quality depth and they have people that can come in and play. But World B, there's one stat that I got to know, and I'm hoping you have this off the top of your head. When Atlanta lost on Saturday night, Quinn Snyder was not rocking the red eyeglass frames. He was wearing black generic frames. Now, I think that hurt the Hawks' chemistry. I think it contributed to their loss to the Bucks. So do we know what his record is with his red frames? I would think you would have this off the top of your head. You're the numbers guru.
Oh yeah, they're 6-2 on the season when he wears that. It's funny you mentioned that. I have it written down right here.
Yeah,
that's a 60-win pace.
If I can spell it, then it sounds good. But no, I have no idea.
No, you don't know.
World B is like Google. If it's on Google, it must be true. I mean, so if he says 6-2, it's 6-2.
That's right, 6-2 on the year. With it's funny. The last 9 games, 2 wins over the Cavs. They beat the Knicks. They beat the Bucks. They didn't on Saturday night, but they beat them in the process of over the last 9 games. There's some big wins along the way here. They're getting the job done. They flopped against Denver. That came into Atlanta and just absolutely whooped them up last week. But still, like I said, this is a team going forward. I think they can be a factor. I need to see more out of the offense, but the defense has really gotten them back into the conversation in the East.
And I'm going to just say one thing real quick before we move on, because I know Ross wants to move on to his favorite team. Clint Capella, we talk about Dyson Daniels and what a dynamic defender on the perimeter he is. He truly is. But Clint Capella had a very good defensive game against Giannis the other day. I mean, Giannis, is great. I mean, Giannis is better than Clint Capella, but Clint Capella gives you real presence in the middle on defense. He's aggressive. And I think he's like an sort of unsung hero in the overall scheme of what they do defensively.
Yeah, Clint Capella is a pest on the offensive boards as well. He is continually attacking the offensive glass and getting a lot of second chance opportunities for this young Hawks team. So great point there, Bruce. Now, moving on to the Milwaukee Bucks as they're set to represent the Eastern Conference in the championship game on Tuesday night in the NBA Cup Finals. This is a Bucks team that started off the year just 2-8. Let's not forget that. They've certainly come a long way since then, but are we still pumping the brakes on them? Because that's one of the questions that I have. I'm still a bit hesitant due to the fact that they still really haven't played and beat any lethal opponents at full strength so far this season. So, Bruce, what's your takeaway from this team? Have you learned anything new about the Bucks throughout this NBA Cup process? And what's your thoughts on how serious we should be taking this team right now?
Well, I definitely think we should take them seriously. The problem I think that they're going to have is if everybody's healthy and everybody's, doing their thing, they can be lethal. The problem is so many of their key guys are kind of getting up there in years a little bit. I mean, Giannis is 30. Dame is 34. Brook Lopez is 36. Khris Middleton is 33. Taurean Prince, the kid, is 30. Even Pat Connaughton's 31 now. Bobby Portis, okay, he's not 30. He's 29, okay? So the younger dudes really have to sort of eat some minutes and give these older guys some rest. I mean, guys like Andre Jackson Jr., AJ Green, who's played really well, have improved. Gary Trent has been better of late. So to me, if all those old guys can stay healthy and they can still play, they have the potential to be lethal. But I'm worried about that next wave. Giannis, however, is no worse than number 2 in the MVP race right now. It's him and Joker, or Joker and him. There ain't nobody between those two. There's those two, and then there's the rest of the NBA. So Giannis is he's just puts the team on his back. He's a superhero.
Yeah, and we'll be real quick before I get to you. Bruce, I got a question for you. Did you know AJ Green's new nickname? Have you seen it yet?
Don't say it's Draymond.
No, they're starting to call him the Dairy Bird. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that? The Dairy Bird.
Dairy Bird, because he's from where? Wisconsin? Is that
he plays for Wisconsin. He can shoot it, and he kind of looks like Larry Bird, so they're calling him Dairy Bird. Okay. You on board or no?
Well, I guess
doesn't sound like you like
it. In the Midwest, that might be funny. In Connecticut, not so much.
Okay. They play in Wisconsin, so everything's cheesy there. Moving on, World B, what's your thoughts on this Bucks team? I feel like, if anything, you've been a little pessimistic on this team so far this season. So has the NBA Cup changed your tune at all with them?
A little bit. And I'll say because Middleton being back, it makes a huge difference on this team. And it's pretty clear. He and Giannis, it hasn't made a tremendous impact on them offensively. Their efficiency, even though they, since that 2-8 start, they're 12-3, which is tied with Boston for the best record since November 27th, whatever you go back there. And by the way, the team they're playing on Tuesday, Oklahoma City, is 11-3, so they're right there. So this is a really good matchup that we'll get into here. But Khris Middleton's been back for 4 games. When he's on the court, they're outscoring opponents by almost 10 points per 100 possessions. That's a really nice number for being back. His offense isn't really there. He's not playing a whole lot. But think about this. He and Giannis really, the connection with those two is really something special. He's been on the court. He's been back for 4 games. He's been on the court for, let me see here, 85 minutes playing with Giannis. And he has 15 assists to Giannis. That's already the second most assists that from one player to Giannis on the team. Only Lillard has more, and he played about 500 something minutes. And Middleton's already got 15 assists in just 85 minutes playing with Giannis. So there's obviously a connection there. It obviously works. They're winning games. Their defense is suddenly getting better. That was a big problem early on. They were one of the worst defensive teams in the league during that 2-8 start. And now they go and play Atlanta, hold them under a point per possession, which is something they only did once all season before that game. So the offense still isn't there, even though the shooting is much better. They're leading the NBA in three-point shootings over this 15-game stretch. So they got that going for them. It's still the efficiency's not there, but get everybody healthy. As Bruce said, health is a big issue when you're got all these veterans on it. If they can do it, if they can play together, I'm thinking they have a real shot to be one of those contending teams in the East.
When they stumbled out of the gate at the beginning of the season, I said pretty much every time we discussed the Bucks, I'm withholding my judgment on this team until Khris Middleton comes back. I've always felt that way because Khris Middleton, you can't underestimate how important this guy is. As far as a chemistry sort of a guy, a glue guy, he's always been a calming presence and a guy who could handle big moments. He makes Dame's life much easier because he can still go get some buckets, but he can also, play some defense, pass the ball, drop dimes. I mean, he's only played 4 games, as will be said, but the last 3 have all been wins. The only loss was his first game back against Boston. And look, Boston is better than Milwaukee right now, okay? They, wouldn't have mattered what he did. They probably weren't going to win that game. But against everyone else here, he's contributed to the wins. So, yes, he is the Zen player in that lineup for that team, in my mind.
And real quick, on one more thing on Middleton here too. He hasn't played even 25 minutes in any of these 4 games. They've really cut down his minutes so far, which I understand makes sense and everything. But wait till, if he stays healthy, wait till they ramp up his minutes and then look at the impact even greater on this team, going forward. He's just in preseason mode or season training mode right now, playing, like I said, he hasn't even played 25 minutes in any of these games. Once that gets going, if he stays healthy, they have a real chance. But as Bruce mentioned, everybody has to be healthy.
Yeah, as of right now, I like Khris Middleton coming off that bench. I know a lot of that has to do with him kind of just ramping back up into speed at the start of his season, getting started. But Andre Jackson Jr., he's a guy that really stood out to me in that semifinal matchup against the Hawks. He had a tremendous impact on the game. And much like you mentioned, Bruce, about Clint Capella playing pretty good defense on Giannis, Andre Jackson Jr. played great defense on Trae Young. I know Trae Young ended up having 35 points. He had a stellar game. But he was after him all game long, trying to wear him down. Jackson only scored 5 points, but he hit a big 3-pointer late in that second half and grabbed 7 rebounds, which is way higher than his game-to-game average there. Had 4 assists and 2 steals. He was kind of all over the place. I kind of like the dynamic of starting a young athletic guy with a ton of energy like Andre Jackson Jr. and then bringing Khris Middleton off the bench, a guy that certainly you have to play honest on the perimeter, whether or not he's, back into game shape or not. With Andre Jackson Jr., you just have to kind of watch him on the help side, make sure he's not cutting, crashing the glass for offensive rebounds because he can get high above the rim. But once Middleton's out there, he's helping space the floor for Giannis and Dame. And as will be pointed out, he's a great passer too. So keep an eye on the Bucks because with Khris Middleton back, he definitely brings a different dynamic that they've been missing. And then the other guy I want to point out too, who's been playing better basketball here lately, Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis near double-double off the bench on Saturday night. Bobby certainly starting to shape back into form off Milwaukee's bench. In his last 3 games alone, he's scored in double digits while shooting over 50% from the floor. And that's going to be key for this team if they're going to be so-called contenders in the Eastern Conference. I mean, if they can get Middleton back playing grade A basketball, Bobby Portis can be a 6th-man candidate, for the regular season award and then get some contributions from these young guys, AJ Green and Andre Jackson Jr. I think we're now entering the conversation again that, they can battle with the best in the East like Bruce's Celtics.
You told us a couple months ago that actually Bobby Portis was the MVP of Giannis's wedding in Greece.
Oh,
I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly what his contribution was, but I do remember you naming him the MVP. Hey, listen, here's the thing. Damian Lillard to me looks like a different guy lately as well. We haven't even barely mentioned him. Okay. He's looking much more like the Portland version of Dame. And I really think in watching him, he's a Hall of Fame player. If he retires tomorrow, he's going to the Hall of Fame. That's not even a question. All right. But he's never won. I don't even think he's ever even played in the conference finals. Okay. I'm sure he hasn't, as a matter of fact.
He did once.
Once. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, but he's never won. I think he realizes at the age of 34, with some of the guys I mentioned before that are sort of key guys like Brook Lopez and, these guys that are all over 30, Middleton, his window's closing. And I see lately in watching him much more purpose to what he's doing. And I know that Middleton's return has definitely had a positive impact on his ability to be that guy. But nevertheless, he looks like that guy right now. So, I'm impressed. I wasn't really sure if he really had it in him at this point. I knew that he could still play, but I wasn't really sure if he really had that fire in his gut. I think I see the fire in his gut, and that is great news for Milwaukee fans.
Well, there was ample reason to question him. First, he didn't have a great shooting season last season for the Bucks, and he started off this season, first 14 games, he wasn't even making a third of his three-pointers. But now, last 8 games, he's 45% from three-point range. I mean, that goes back to before Middleton got there. So you're right, Bruce. He's been shooting the ball much better, which is obviously what they need. They don't have that deep perimeter threat. He was the guy, especially after Grayson Allen left. So he's been their big 3-point guy. It obviously, this whole thing, as you mentioned before, Bruce, Giannis is still the man on this team. That's what it revolves around. He's been playing lights out. It's one of my favorite stats of the year right here. 23 games he's played. He's got 23 straight games scoring 20 points and shooting 50% from the field. The next closest, longest streak this season is 8 by Anthony Davis. So Giannis has done it every game this season he's played. 23 straight games to start. Since the merger, the ABA-NBA merger in 76-77, only 2 players have had a longer streak. And that's Zion Williamson a couple years ago, and Shaq is second year of their title run. Each had 25-game streaks. And that's it. So this is an unbelievable stretch that he's on. It also doesn't help or hurt that he is scoring 22 points a game in the paint, which leads the NBA by a boatload. So that doesn't hurt his ability to get to 20 points and shoot 50% from the field. But nobody's stopping him.
Have you ever seen a guy his size who has the kind of an offensive repertoire that he has take the ball coast to coast like a freaking tornado cutting through Iowa during tornado season, where everything just parts and nobody wants to get in front of him? He's like just a machine, can't be stopped. Occasionally he might lose his balance, but most of the time when he takes it, I mean, 6'10", 6'11" guy going boom, 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 like 5 dribbles, and he's at the basket jamming it. I mean, it's just, it's like just a force of nature.
And by the way, I mentioned how he's just dominating in the paint, and he's like 71% in that restricted area. It's something ridiculous. But one of the reasons he's having such a good year, he's having his best shooting season from mid-range. Now, we don't want him going any further than mid-range. He's like 18% from 3. Yeah. So, but he's actually cut down on the number of threes.
Take it, Giannis. Take it. If you're open,
well, it would help. Maybe he doesn't open his eyes or something. I have no idea at this point.
Shoot the ball.
But I'll say this: he doesn't take them like he had been. He's really taking less than 1 a game. So at least he's getting away from that. But from mid-range, he's shooting the best he's ever shot from that area. So that absolutely, you throw that part of his game into this domination in the paint. And I agree with you, Bruce. I mean, it's Joker and Giannis, and that might be it for the whole season.
Yeah.
They'll get all the votes.
And you look at Giannis, I've said it for years, and he's just continuing to support my idea here. I mean, he is this generation Shaq. He is the most dominant player in the game by far. It's not even a question. The stats back it up. We can argue, obviously, that the Joker's the best. I think it's hard not to say that the Joker is the best player in the game given his stats. But as far as dominance, Giannis has that on lock. Now, before we hit
I still say he's got a little of Hakeem Olajuwon in him too. I've always kind of seen, more from the emotional side of it, perhaps, than the skill set. But to me, they're like, kindred spirits.
Yeah, shades of Hakeem as well. Now, before we hit the break, I do have an NBA Cup pop quiz for you guys here. Can either of you tell me what Taurean Prince and Darvin Ham have in common when it comes to the NBA Cup?
They're both undefeated.
That is correct. Yes, they are both undefeated in NBA Cup play. As you might remember, they were both members of the Lakers with Ham as the head coach and Taurean Prince on the team. They have never lost an NBA Cup game. So that is going to be on the line Tuesday night against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And with that, we're going to take a quick break and come back with you to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder right after this. And we're back here on 48 Minutes. Let's head out west here as we had a battle that truly never gets old, as both teams are young and extremely talented, gritty, and quickly on the rise in the Western Conference. And that battle was between the Houston Rockets and the Oklahoma City Thunder, with the Thunder coming up on top 111-96. And with that, I ask you this, Bruce: will the Houston Rockets always remain the underdog in this matchup against the Thunder unless they decide to swing for the fences and make a big name splash with a trade?
Yeah, I mean, look, they lack reliable shooters. I mean, it's simple as that. Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green combined to shoot 2 for 19 from downtown on Saturday. The team was 11 out of 46 on threes. That's not even 24%. They even missed 10 out of their 25 free throw attempts. So they were garbage at the free throw line too, 15 out of 25. They just struggle to score in the half court. I mean, look, if they're running and going up and down and their defense is creating offense and they get guys out there running, they're almost like Phi Slamma Jamma in some ways when they're playing that style. But, in the playoffs, things will slow down. The better teams will scheme against your offense. And you're going to have Jalen Green, who, as talented as he is, can be a real turnover machine. He's not an ideal point guard. Fred VanVleet's not an ideal point guard. They lack kind of organization in the half court, and that's their Achilles heel. I mean, defensively, they'll kick your butt, but offensively, they'll kick their own butt.
Yeah, well said there. World B, what's your thoughts on H-Town?
You saw Saturday was a great example of how much they value their defense, and the big gap between these two teams is on the offensive end. In the first half, Houston allowed Oklahoma City score just 41 points, and it was against one of the best offenses in the league in Oklahoma City, and they held them to 41 points. Really impressive. Second half, Oklahoma City gets it going, scores 70 in the second half. Houston doesn't have the offense to keep up with that, especially against a team as great defensively as Oklahoma City. We'll get into that. They're just unbelievable on defense. But yeah, it comes down to, for me, Bruce mentioned it. If your best player can't shoot the ball, and that's being Jalen Green, I'm told Jalen Green is their best player. If he can't shoot the ball better than he's shooting, their defense is elite, but they're just not going to go anywhere in the playoffs, in that conference. They can get up, standings wise, because there's enough bad teams you play along the way to get enough wins to get up in the standings. But, I'm not trusting this team in the playoffs. Your starting backcourt is shooting 31% from 3-point range combined. How do you win? How do you win doing that in this day and age? You don't have to be elite offensively, but you got to be better than that.
On Saturday, right? I mean, they're such a poor shooting team. They actually had a 19-4 advantage in offensive rebounds, okay? They missed so many shots. They do manage to grab a lot of the misses. But then when they grab the misses, they're not converting those either. So on those 19 offensive rebounds, they only got 19 second chance points out of that. So if you're going to, you have to do something good there. You can't do everything sort of, we miss a lot of shots, and then we miss a lot more shots after we get second chances. So that's why, I'm going to talk a little bit at the end of the show about Jimmy Butler. I think, if they could figure out a way to get him there, he could solve a lot of their problems because of the style he plays. And I think they need something like that. If it's not Jimmy Butler, they still need someone that can do that.
Think about this. They're one of the top 4 teams in the West. Their defense has gotten them to a record. They're one of the top 4 teams in the West, and they're the second worst shooting team in the league. Only the Pelicans, who have injuries all over the place, are shooting worse because they're basically fielding the team some nights that the G League wouldn't want to put out. And that's it. It's those 2 teams are the only 2 teams that are shooting under 50% in effective field goal percentage. You can't win. You just can't, or you can win, but you're not going to go very far in this in the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely not in a 7-game series. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I say something nice about Houston? Because we've basically just been kind of pounding them since we started this discussion. How great was it? Well, at least for me it was. How great was it to see Steven Adams back out there playing some meaningful minutes? Steven Adams is one of my favorite guys. He's always played a team game. He's a team first guy. He's a strong guy. He and Bam Adebayo are probably the 2 best screen setters in the NBA. And he's just a cool dude. He's like the Jason Momoa of the NBA. So big ups to Steven Adams. Great seeing him back on the court. And I think before the season's over, he's definitely going to be a factor for those guys.
Yeah, and speaking of Steven Adams, let's go ahead and talk about one of his former teams, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder, as they'll be representing the West in the NBA Cup Finals against the Bucks. First thing that stands out to me will be, you mentioned it, their defense is just incredible. SGA, 5 steals in this game. This team just flies all around the court, rotating, pressuring the basketball at all times. Just a lot of heart and hustle with this group. So, Bruce, when it comes to this team, I mean, even without Chet Holmgren right now, how lethal is the Thunder? I mean, I feel like they always find a way to just pick it up. They're kind of like the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic lose guys, and it seems not to affect the team. OKC is kind of right there with them.
OKC, to me, has talent, and it also has chemistry. They have guys, they have Shai Gilgeous Alexander, who's just kind of a singular talent in this league at this point. Excuse me. In my estimation, he's almost like a guard version of a Nikola Jokic in that he plays at his own speed. You cannot speed him up. When he has to get someplace on the court, he finds a way to get there. He's in the right place at the right time, whether it's on defense getting steals or just finding like no space and still managing to get all the way to the rim for a layup, okay? He's the crafty, talented, just super talented. Like I said, reminds me a little bit of the Joker in the way he can kind of just do his own thing and everyone else is doing their thing. And he's like, okay, you do your thing. I'm going to do my thing. And it works pretty well. And look, Jalen Williams is really an ideal number 2 on that team too. I mean, he's a reliable scorer. He can be a volume shooter at times, but he's a good passer, can be turnover prone, but on defense, did you see the play about 4 minutes into the fourth quarter on Saturday night where he just ripped it from Jalen Green? Jalen Green was doing like Jalen Green can do, being a little bit loose with the ball. And Williams just went, ugh. It looked like one of those Marcus Smart steals when he used to be on the Celtics. He just muscled it away from the guy who went in for a layup. Jalen Green, had they been able to get a bucket, they would have been up 5. Instead, after that play, they were only up 1. And I thought that was a real momentum shifter in the game. And that was Jalen Williams on defense, not even offense, which is where he makes most of his, best plays.
Yeah, that was a big swing in that matchup. Will B, what's your thoughts on Oklahoma City?
Well, it's amazing. Their defense is on a historic level at this point right now. They're not just good. They're on a pace to be historically good. They are 9 points, almost 9.5 points better defensively in terms of defensive efficiency than the league average. And the record, according to NBA.com, over the last 28 years, whatever they've been tracking, is like just over 8 points by the Spurs a few years ago. And the Thunder are 9.5 points better than the league average. That's a ridiculous average to be that much better than the rest of the league. Their defense is absolutely elite, as is Houston, by the way. Bruce mentioned we've been hammering about their offense. Their defense is rock solid as well. They're just running into a team that has it all defensively. Jalen Williams, here's something. When they were having the issues in the middle, when Holmgren got hurt, Hartenstein hadn't come back yet, it was Jalen Williams. He played about 150 minutes, over 150 minutes at the 5 this year for them. He's 6'5", everybody. And he's playing, and he's absolutely one of the best defenders at the rim. Like opponents are shooting like 53% on shots at the rim that he defends, which is top 10 in the league among players. So he's absolutely gets it done on defense. The whole team, number 1 in deflections, number 1 in steals, number 1 in opponent turnover rate, number 1 in points per game off turnovers. I mean, it's a ridiculous defense based, on their steals, their ability to deflect the ball and everything like that. SGA, here's a note for you on him. You mentioned him compared with Joker. They score 17 points per 100 possessions more when he's on the court, SGA, than when he's off. For perspective, last season, Joker wins the MVP. The Nuggets scored 18 points per 100 possessions more when he was on the court than off. And oh, by the way, as a little side note to everything, this season, the Nuggets scored 27 points more per 100 possessions when Joker's on the court than off. So that's just keep that in mind when we talk MVPs later on. It's having an unbelievable impact on them. But the Thunder are everything we thought we saw them last year, and they look even better this year. It's ridiculous how good they are.
One of the guys that I mean, everyone talks about SGA and, Jalen Williams. Lu Dort does work. He is just an absolute Tasmanian devil on defense. He's everywhere, okay? He had 19 and 9 with 3 steals on Saturday. Every great team, one of the reasons good teams become great teams is because they have somebody like Lu Dort on their team that can be, I almost, say he's like a Derek White type, not quite as good as Derek White, but does a lot of those same kinds of things. Or back in the old days, Dennis Johnson, who was a, great, player. He's in that mold. I mean, he'll score, but he doesn't really look to score. He can if you need him. The shot clock's winding down and the ball's in his hands. He'll probably take a decent shot, but just the way he wears you out on the perimeter with his defense, I mean, that is just such a huge reason their defense is so good.
Yeah, he'll be top 3 in defensive player of the year, I believe. I agree with you, Bruce.
I've got a prediction for the championship game when it comes to Lu Dort. I think he's going to get the assignment on Giannis, believe it or not. I know that might be shocking. Most people might think it might be Hartenstein. I think it's going to be Lu Dort. They're going to throw a lot of bodies at Giannis. When the ball gets kicked out of Giannis's hands, those guys fly around. And I think Cason Wallace will start out on Damian Lillard, guarding the Bucks star point guard there. But one other guy I wanted to point out, I just found this hilarious. World B had just talked about how impactful SGA is offensively to this Thunder team and even defensively, of course. SGA was a plus 16 on the night in the semifinal matchup against the Rockets. The only other guy to be plus 16 in this game, Alex Caruso, who played a game-high 20 minutes off the Thunder bench, went 0 of 3 from the field, didn't score a single point, still plus 16 while he's out there on the floor. So it hasn't been a sexy acquisition. He's not making big-time plays and showing up on Sports Center for highlights, but he's doing a lot of things behind the scenes out there on the court that is being extremely productive for this group and making a huge impact on their season success so far.
I mean, they have literally 3 players who could be all defense.
Yep. They sure do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruce,
that post game interview was kind of funny the other night too. When Lisa Salters had SGA and these guys are talking, he says, "Shut up." And it's like, well, wait. And then he realized, I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't really cool. But everybody was fine with it. I mean, clearly his teammates all love him. And if he tells them to shut up, they might just shut up.
Yeah, I thought Lisa did a good job handling that too. She played along with it, which was a lot of fun.
Lisa's such a pro. Lisa Salters, man. I mean, I worked with Lisa many, many times. There ain't too many that can hold her mic. She's about 5'0", but she's a giant at her job.
Awesome. And with that, let's go ahead and take one more break and then get to our NBA Cup predictions. And we're back here on 48 Minutes, and let's go ahead and talk about the finale here on Tuesday night between the Bucks and Thunder. Bruce, I'll start with you. What's your game preview on this one and your prediction for the overall winner?
Each team has an all-NBA superstar. Each guy, Giannis and SGA, had 32 points in their Saturday victories, okay? Giannis for the Bucks, Shai Gilgeous Alexander for the Thunder. They're also international stars. Giannis, obviously, from Greece. SGA is from Canada. I mean, a lot of people know that. Maybe some don't. But since this tournament began last season, the NBA Cup has really had kind of an international, almost kind of a FIBA-ish feel to it because of the way the competition goes, It's very much run like an international type tournament, okay? So to me, it's somehow appropriate that the biggest stars in the championship game aren't from the United States. Frequently, the big guys cancel each other out, and it's left to the number 2 and 3 guys to come up big. The Bucks have Dame and Middleton with Portis off the bench. OKC has Jalen Williams, as we said, and their next guy is Lu Dort. And then, since Chet Holmgren is injured, I mean, it's kind of those 2 guys. And Isaiah Hartenstein, let's say. If he can have a good game and make Giannis work for his points, while Dort stays glued to Dame the entire night, OKC could win. But, however, that's my second however of the night. Slowing Giannis down is a lot easier said than done, especially when you only have one big with Hartenstein, although Ross feels that, Jalen Williams might, see a little bit of Giannis too. Lu Dort, rather. But slowing Giannis down is easier said than done. I think OKC is going to have trouble keeping Portis off the boards. I think he's going to have a big rebounding game. Dame's just going to have to grind it out against Dort. But he's a future Hall of Famer. So I say the Bucks are going to win this in a very close game, but it should be a great game to watch.
All right, World B, what's your thoughts and predictions?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, you couldn't ask for two teams on a better roll than these two. The Bucks are 12-3 in their last 15, and the Thunder are 11-3 in their last 14. So you couldn't ask for a better matchup in terms of teams that are playing well at the right time. For me, I would take the Bucks, and for all the garbage I've been giving them since the end of last season and into this season when they were struggling, and I had no problem pointing out how they were under 500 since Doc took over and all that fun stuff, and how much I missed the Joe Prunty era, those 3 games when they went 2-1 last season as the interim. All that being said, they're playing really well right now. I believe in the impact of Khris Middleton, even if he's playing small minutes right now. I believe it's having a definite impact. If nothing else, it adds to the depth of the team, which a team like the Bucks definitely needs. And at the end of the day, the best player on the court is Giannis, and he's playing about as well as you could ask him to play. Ask anybody to play, really. And so until somebody figures out a way to slow him down, Oklahoma City is probably the better team overall, but they're also bottom 10 in offensive and defensive rebound percentage, which boggles my mind. Now they're so good and so bad at that in that department. But I think that's a problem against a team like the Bucks, and I think Giannis is going to be the best player in the court. I think Middleton's a factor. Damian Lillard is on fire these days, and Doc Rivers gets to put another championship banner for his resume, his Hall of Fame resume. So I think the Bucks pull this one out.
All right, and believe it or not, I'm actually going to take the Thunder in this one. I think Giannis is going to have a tremendous game, but I think the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to come away with this win.
This is such a reverse psychology thing.
Nice save by Ross there.
Nobody's fooled by this.
His guy's going to go for 70, but they're going to lose to the Thunder.
Hey, and if he goes for 70, guess what? It doesn't count because this game does not go down in the record books.
That's true.
That's true. So let's hopefully he saves that game for another regular season. But I just think Damian Lillard's going to have his troubles in this one. I think the perimeter defense, being the strength of Oklahoma City, is going to cause nightmares for him. He's going to have to put on an epic prime Portland Trailblazers Dame game for me to believe that the Bucks are going to win this game, because I think Giannis can go for 40, and I think the rest of the group's really going to struggle with just how well Oklahoma City rotates and gets deflections, forcing steals, and can really kind of speed up Milwaukee. And even when it comes to Middleton, right? Like, I think speeding him up this early in his return back to the court could be an issue as well. So Bobby Portis has to be big, and Brook Lopez has to get his butt in the paint to help with these offensive rebounds, because a lot of the times they leave that lane open for Giannis to drive. So if Giannis kicks it out and they're shooting threes, Giannis is kind of the only guy down there battling for rebounds. They need Lopez to crash the glass. They need Bobby Portis in there. I do agree with you, Bruce. I think Portis is going to have a good rebounding game against a team like OKC, who struggles to rebound the basketball. But I've got to go with the Thunder here until further notice. And I hope I'm wrong, but it should be a fun game. I think it's going to be a tight one. It won't be a blowout or anything, but I've got OKC in that one. So with that, let's go ahead and get into our final one-liners. Bruce?
Has a player ever gotten more respect from the officials than Jimmy Butler? If I asked him where he lived, he could honestly say, I live at the free throw line. I think he and the Heat will soon part ways despite a nice 6-year run in Miami. For any team that needs better scoring in the half court, I'm looking at you, Houston. Jimmy buckets would help, and he'll get the other team in foul trouble too. Pat Riley was publicly annoyed at Jimmy back in the spring when he trolled the Celtics, and Riles said, "You're not even playing, shut your mouth." Miami ain't giving him away, no question about that. But I firmly believe he's moving somewhere else soon. And if he ends up in H-Town, he'll be playing fewer than 40 miles away from his hometown of Tomball, Texas. And that would be really cool because I think he's just what that team needs.
I totally agree. And while we're on the topic of Jimmy Butler, just quickly here, sorry, Suns fans, but stop putting Jimmy Butler in your dreams because there's no way Miami's wanting Brad Beal back for him. I've gotten a lot of questions on that from Suns fans, and I'm like, guys, come on, let's stop the pipe dream here. The Suns can't afford him. World B, what do you got for us?
The Memphis Grizzlies are starting to remind people that just 2 seasons ago, they were the second best team in the Western Conference behind just the Denver Nuggets. And now that they are healthy again, they're showing why. They're top 5 in offense, top 5 in defense. They serving notice that they're one of the best teams in the league again. But until Ja Morant starts showing the maturity that you want out of your best player, I can't see the team going very far in the playoffs. He got into an altercation on Friday night in a win over the Nets where they dominated. He had something to say to Nets coach Jody Fernandez, who didn't take kindly to it during the game and after the game with his comments. And it started a bench clearing thing. Nothing really happened, but it just goes to show once again that your best player displays a genuine lack of immaturity at the wrong time. It's just going to, when the going gets tough for this team, I can't, until I see it from Ja Morant that he can keep his composure and act like a superstar, I just don't see him leading this team much further than they've been already.
Yeah, big concerns there with Ja Morant as far as his maturity and leadership on the court, but Grizzlies are playing some good ball here as of recently. As for my final one-liner, I want to talk about the 2 trades that took place this past weekend with Miami trading Thomas Bryant to the Indiana Pacers. Bryant's making his Indiana return as he went to IU for college, so that's kind of a fun storyline. And then, of course, Dennis Schroeder was traded to the Golden State Warriors for a couple second-round picks. And my question is, are these legitimate trades or are they smaller steps towards a bigger trade? I think it's more the latter there. I think this is kind of just a cap move to where they can start making future moves down the road. I think these are just short-term solutions, almost like a liquid Band-Aid until they really rip the big Band-Aid off and make a big-time move. But fun to see some acquisitions in the NBA. It seems like it's going to be a tough year for NBA trades to go down. So a little glimmer of hope here with the domino effect of 2 trades happening this past weekend. And hopefully we get more, so we have more to discuss here on 48 Minutes. But with that, that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe, presented by Bet Online. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you next week to be sure you're up to date and 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everyone.